buy,
rent. Buy, rent, burn. This is the segment of the podcast where we discuss everyone's games. Basically, we each pick a game, bring it to the table, and we'll all play them and then give our opinions on which game we would personally buy, rent, or burn. This week, we're going with Game Boy titles, and Andy has gone with Kwirk for the Game Boy, which, according to the back of the box, the description is everybody's run into quirks. Like when your shoelaces got tied together or socks never matched, and behind it all was the original Kwirk himself. I didn't know he did that. That's amazing. But now Kwirk, the chilled tomato, is in a bit of a stew. Somebody has set up a trap for his main squeeze, Tammy, and Kwirk's the only trucking tomato with a chance to rescue her from this puzzling predicament. Wow, I can't wait. And Justin has gone with David Crane's The Rescue of Princess Blobette. Description on this one: Blob is back. That's right. The jelly bean loving Blob and his faithful Earth Boy companion. Are there boys from anywhere else, by the way? Are back in a brand new adventure. This time out, the duo's exploits take them to the royal castle of Blobonia. I swear they were there last time too. Blob's home planet, as they attempt to free the lovely and imprisoned Princess Blobette from the clutches of the treacherous anti-agnostic alchemist. Yeah, okay. I'm going to pretend that that's the right word that I just read. Join our heroes as they encounter secret rooms, clever traps, and dangerous obstacles in the labyrinthine depths of the castle. But all is not lost. These two share a very special secret. With each flavor of jelly bean the boy feeds the Blob, Blob will magically transform into a different shape that can help this intrepid pair get past just about anything the alchemist can conjure up. And it's got a game quote on the back of the box here: rewarding and fun, Game Players Magazine. Boy, good thing I didn't use too many words. The sensational sequel to A Boy and His Blob, winner of 1990's Parents' Choice approval. If that's going to sell, that's going to sell some games. I'm sure that was a big help back in the day. And my pick is Sneaky Snakes. The description on this one: Sneaky Snakes is the spine-tingling tale of two rip-roaring reptiles, Attila and I'm gonna just guess this is how they want you to pronounce it, Gang Hiss. When Sonia Snake is nabbed by the nasty Nibbler, it's more than they can swallow. So Attila and Gang Hiss must slither about to snatch Sonia from the nest of the nasty Nibbler. I swear that's just a repeat of the first paragraph, pretty much. But first, they must survive 16 serpentine levels, each swarming with enemies so slippery and sly, it'll make your skin shed. All right. To scale from one nibblicious landscape to the next.
Adding that one to my vocabulary.
Yeah. To consume those ever-tasty nibblies and head for the scale before time runs out. So just don't sit there hissing. Get nibbling, snake. That must be this is the worst box. Okay, so those are the descriptions of these fantastic Game Boy games. How about just an overview from each of us? Maybe get into the games a little bit more. We'll go back up to the top. Andy, you can tell us a little bit more about Kwirk.
Yeah, well, Kwirk is he looks like, I mean, obviously it's a tomato, but to me, he looks like the older brother of Cool Spot, who wasn't like paid attention to enough or something like that. So he had like a punk phase.
Yeah, he's like the hardcore punk version of Cool Spot. That's a good reference. Yeah.
He's got like a green mohawk and he's just a kind of a badass. So when you see that box art, you wouldn't think it's just kind of a box pushing puzzle game, which it is. But overall, I like it. It's that genre was done to death on that system, but I think this was like one of the originals. And it plays pretty well, and it mixes it up enough. It has enough different mechanics in it where it's not just, okay, you got to move boxes around and figure out that. It's, moving other things around, dropping it in the floor, making platforms. It does a lot with a little. But that said, it I didn't play it too long just because it just wears out its welcome a little bit. What about you guys?
I'm still just confused that he's a tomato. Like, did that? I don't. They obviously didn't design the game in mind with him being a tomato, so they must have done that for box art purposes or something. Because he
Yeah,
doesn't look like a tomato.
I'm not sure.
That's weird.
It was
Go ahead.
terrible drawing, so they just decided it was a tomato instead.
Yeah. That circle isn't good enough. Well, let's just call it a tomato. Okay, yeah, that could work.
The funny thing is, there's a sequel to this game for the Game Boy called like The Amazing Tater or something like that, which is about a potato. Same type of game style, and it's like
super rare, right?
Yeah, it's like the most expensive Game Boy game.
So they liked their veggies at listed.
Yep. Which it's probably something to point out that it was an Atlas made game, but it was actually published by Acclaim here. So you go from like the highest brand name in gaming to one of the lowest for the publisher.
Yeah, it's quite the spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I kind of like you. I didn't get too far into it. I mean, the one thing that I kept thinking though as I was playing it is the scale of everything is so small. Obviously, on a Game Boy back with those screens back in the day, if you think of the original Game Boy when this would have come out, like this would have been kind of a difficult game to really see like all the pieces and components on some of these maps as you get further along and they get a little more busy as far as like blocks and traps and I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that.
It seemed like they could have scaled it up a little bit more. It's not like you would have necessarily had to see the full puzzle because everything's a single screen puzzle. But then they also have like a huge area dedicated to your starting area and then the exit area. And it eats up a lot of this real estate where I feel like they could have maybe scaled that back and made it a little more manageable. I mean, that was just like the first thing I thought of as I was playing it.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying there, but a couple of levels in there where you have to plan your later on move, like what you're going to do with the floor and whatnot.
Yeah, you have to see it all.
Yeah.
So you have to see the whole screen, but
Right.
I don't know how they could have done that differently because
I think even if they would have just like made the exit and entry points a little bit shrunken down, and then you could have still had everything on screen. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see where you're going, especially for the Game Boy. Almost everything on there was blown up to like huge proportions where usually the main complaint on games is that you can't see enough, So it's funny. It's the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely has some interesting mechanics. You don't usually see puzzle games like this. I guess the closest thing I was thinking of is that Boxy Boy on Sega Genesis and maybe TurboGrafx. It's kind of similar, but this is a little more involved in that you're not only shifting boxes around in some levels, you're like flipping switches or, as you pointed out, filling in platforms. So it's kind of cool. It's like a more elaborate take on that type of game, and it allows for more interesting combinations of puzzles, I think.
Yep. For some reason, like that box pushing puzzle type genre was just like huge in Japan. They made a ton of them, even a lot that didn't even come over here. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was with that. But Kwirk is a character, though. I don't know if you know this. He was featured in a cartoon.
Really?
Yes, there was a Captain N ripoff that featured basically Acclaim video game characters, and it was called the Power Team.
And this aired in America?
Yep. It was on I think it was like a segment of a different show called like Video Power maybe or something like that.
Okay.
I don't ever remember seeing it. But just kind of in the research here that yeah, so there's like Captain N's got Mega Man, Simon Belmont, like all these huge stars in video gaming.
Right.
This one, the Power Team has like Kwirk, some guy from Wizards and Warriors, I think a basketball player from like Arch Rivals, and like Bigfoot, the monster truck, Quirk, and like
This cartoon sounds like it might actually be better than this game. Like I kind of need to find some of this now. I'm gonna have to see if some of this has got to be on YouTube. This sounds amazing.
oh yeah, yep.
Moving along to David Crane, I guess.
Yeah.
Justin, can you tell us a little bit about the rescue of Princess Blobette?
Well, it's basically the same game as the first one, just on a different map, I guess, or levels. But I honestly didn't play this one too long. I felt it was too close to the same. That's why I didn't give it as much time as I probably should have. But it's a puzzle type game with the jelly beans, figuring out what item to use to get further, I guess, through the level. I don't know. I guess I just didn't really like the way this one played compared to the first one on NES.
I would agree with you. It's like virtually almost a carbon copy of the gameplay. I kind of liked how the sprites were a little bit bigger. I thought that was kind of cool. And I really appreciated more so than anything is that opening trap room, essentially, to kind of get you acclimated. And like I just kept thinking as I was playing this, because we've obviously played A Boy and His Blob, but like how many kids got this game and never saw anything beyond that room? I bet there was a good percentage. I mean, it was really like it was ingenious to me and intuitive, but yeah, if you had no idea what that game was about, man, you just got screwed. Like you spent all your allowance money to see this one room with a blob, a kid, and some jelly beans, and that's the game.
That's why it was the parents' choice, because the kids had to turn off the Game Boy.
Yeah, I thought it played really well. I kind of, the limited color palette of the NES, and just the zoom in on the characters, I liked it. I agree. I didn't get too far because it is more or less just an extension of that same gameplay style. But I guess I didn't even realize that there was this sequel on the Game Boy from the original, so it was kind of neat to see it.
I played it all the way through. I followed a walkthrough on pretty much 3/4 of it. It didn't take too long, but boy, I have to say, like, a lot of it is the limitation of the Game Boy compared to the NES. Like, you can't mix it up as much. Like, everything just seemed like, oh, it's just platforms. There's no, like, different settings as you go around different areas there. And yeah, the one on the NES, you go to the other planet and it gets really weird really fast and kind of gets interesting. Where this one it's boring.
One trick
like
pony.
Nothing really happens. Like there's no bad guy either, really. Like, spoiler, but at the end of it, you find her in a cage and you just like use, one of the jelly beans to open the cage. She falls out, which, by the way, she is not, I don't know how the box art was describing her, something like beautiful or something, but she got the mispack. She has a bow on. It's the same blob as your blob, but she has a big bow on. So I have to disagree with their description on how ravaging she is.
So it was a bit of a letdown, is what you're saying?
Yes, I was expecting this beautiful thing, but it was not.
I'm gonna go in a completely weird direction here, but how do you suppose blobs have intercourse? Do you think they have to form the genitals and then they do that, or is it like one of them morphs into like a hot dog and then one morphs into like a donut?
Just imagine the jelly beans that you got to feed them.
Yeah, like.
Okay, babe. Which beans should we take tonight?
or is it like the X-Men situation with Charlize Theron's like character who can just like change into anything? So like it's like a different girl every night, sort of. I mean, is that how these blobs get into it?
Could be. Yeah.
Okay. Well, glad I went down that rabbit hole.
I mean, we're not going to find out. It's a parent's choice, so they're never going to touch that subject.
It's true. Maybe we should reach out to David Crane and have him bring an M-rated version of this game back.
Yeah. Man, that would be a bad idea.
All right. So let's go on to our last game here. Sneaky Snakes.
Nibble it.
Yeah, let's nibble it. Oh, that nasty nibbler. He's up to no good. Um, so Sneaky Snakes, if for those of you who are familiar on the NES, there's a game called Snake Rattle and Roll, which is made by Rare. This is also a Rare game. And it's basically that game, but on the NES, it's like a pseudo 3D isometric platformer. The objective is to just eat stuff up on the level, not take damage. If you take, and your snake grows as you eat items. And then if you take damage, your snake shrinks, and you have to reach a certain weight to open the door at the end of the level based on a scale. This is a carbon copy of that gameplay, but because it's on the Game Boy, it's just 2-dimensional. So you've got this side-scrolling platformer with the same objective. Probably some of the slipperiest, no pun intended, controls of any platformer I think I've ever played. It's near impossible to keep these guys from sliding off of everything in certain levels. And I honestly think, while I wouldn't go so far to say as this is a great game, I think this is a better interpretation of the game than the actual Snake Rattle and Roll on the NES. It's a little bit more playable because it's just a flat 2D, but I don't know, it's just a weird game. I love the soundtrack, by the way. Every track in there is just awesome. It's like weird rockabilly, like arcade sounding music. What did you guys think?
I have to agree. This is way better than the Snake Rattle and Roll. Just the fact that it's kind of like a solid 2D thing. I liked a lot of the personality to it too. Like when you go in the water and you kind of like bubble up and you just start bloating up. Like that's it's kind of funny. Just something you don't see. That I don't know. Overall, it the graphics on it were very good, especially for like 91. I thought it was early 91. I thought it looked pretty good to me. But yeah, it's a game about nibbling balls. So
yeah, but those balls don't want to be nibbled. They'll hop every which way to get away from you. You got to work to nibble them balls. I also want to point out that, like, in most games when you run out of time, the game just ends. In this game, when you run out of time, a giant flying axe comes to like cut you in half. It just like spawns out of nowhere, and if you're quick enough, you can actually avoid the thing and make it to the end of the level. But it's kind of unexpected, and it turns like, I don't know. It immediately just makes me into like panic mode. I'm sweating and trying to get away from this damn axe. It's hard.
There were like some things that were like, it seemed like they were supposed to hurt you but didn't. Like I thought there was like some spikes that I landed on and you could just go on them. Didn't do anything.
Oh, really?
But maybe I was wrong. Yeah.
Well, if you get the diamond, then you can. If you pick up the diamond, you're invincible, but it doesn't really clearly indicate that because it doesn't flash or... I mean, it slowly flickers, but it's weird.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, well, there's a level where the spikes are, and it does hurt you because I jumped on them. Hurt by them, so.
I know I died.
I'd never played either one of these games. Like, what was the other one you called?
Snake Rattle and Roll is the NES.
Yeah, I'd never played that. So when I got into this game, I had no idea what I was doing. I went through, and then you get into that warp section. And the first one I picked, I ended up warping back. I was like, really? So then I went to the end, and then I couldn't get through. I was like, well, it looks like a scale. Now what? Go back through, and finally I figured out eating stuff you grew. But it's an interesting game.
Yeah. I like that opening stage, too, because it immediately just kind of screws with you. You just come up to like a cliff over spikes, and you have to do this like huge leap of faith, not knowing what's going to happen. It's an interesting opening to a game.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've heard the fantastic description on all of these wonderful titles, and we've gotten everyone's kind of thoughts on each after we've played them. Why don't we go through? We'll do our picks. We can start back up off the top. Andy, if you want to give us your breakdown.
Yeah, I'm gonna nibble on those balls and give me Sneaky Snakes for my buy.
I'm taking that clip out of context and using it for everything going forward.
like you said, the gameplay gets a little it's a little loose, but and floaty or something. But the graphics I like quite a bit, and the gameplay, like taking like what I knew was Snake Rattle Roll, and then like you said, turn it in 2D. It just kind of simplified it to the point where it was like, okay, this works better. This is what it should have been on the NES. I wish they would have made that game on the NES because it would have been, a lot more colorful, probably a lot better than this one too. But that one's going to be my buy. My rent is going to be Kwirk, just because. Look at him. Look at that, a tomato with a mohawk, like that. That can't be a burn.
If you didn't at least rent him, he might cut you. You don't know. You
right.
Don't want to take a chance.
Right. And you don't know if he's a fruit or a vegetable. It's tough to say like what he is. So you don't. He's just a little unexpected that way. But the game itself is fine. For 2018 now, it's a little played out, but overall, it's not a bad puzzle game, especially for that early on. And then my burn is going to be David Crane's The Rescue of Princess Blobette. And I'm kind of disappointed because I found the NES one interesting, and this one just didn't take the Game Boy. They knew the limitations of the Game Boy, and instead of like working around it like Sneaky Snakes does, they just tried to do the same thing, and it's just like a gimped version of it. So yeah, I'll burn that one.
Nice. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same line here, I guess. My buy is going to be Sneaky Snakes. I really enjoyed that game for what it is. Like I said, I've never played it or Snake Rattle and Roll, but once I figured out, I guess, the object of it and everything, I really enjoyed it. And I guess my rent is going to be Kwirk. Those type of games, I don't know, just kind of seem to interest me sometimes, just for random pick up and play off and on. And my burn is going to be The Rescue of Princess Blobette, mainly just because I felt like it was the same thing as before in the first one, just not nearly as fun or well done, I guess. I don't know. It just didn't feel like the game had everything it should have. But that's probably because it's on the Game Boy. So
makes sense. I liked all of these games in their own right, and it's kind of a weird one because I don't think anything here really stands out. So I kind of, when I was thinking about these games, because I wasn't sure which way to go, I kind of looked at it and I'm like, and I had to put it in the perspective of the Game Boy in its time and like what type of games I'd want to be playing on it. As far as like pick up and play, replay value, and that's kind of where I made my decision. So I'm actually going to buy Sneaky Snakes because, as Andy pointed out, it's a game that it tires itself out pretty quickly, but it's a game that I could easily see myself picking up and, putting that hour into it in a go and just being done with it. It's a good Game Boy game in that, right? And it is fun. And when it does wear itself out, you just turn it off and come back to it later. And then I would rent Kwirk. I think just because that type of game, once you understand how the puzzles are working, really, how often are you going to go back to that game? You're going to pick it up every once in a while and play through to see how far you can get. But to me, it kind of fits that rental mold. I wouldn't want to turn it on because it's the Game Boy, not have a battery backup, and then just have to start from the beginning every freaking time. And then I'm burning the Rescue of Princess Blobette for the same reasons you guys are. I was really impressed with The Boy and His Blob on the NES, and this, while it's similar, it kind of gives you that same vibe. It's just kind of a more lifeless version of a game I really like. And I just, for a Game Boy title, it's a weird pick. I can't see an adventure game like that being something that's really great for like short play periods on a handheld. So it just kind of makes sense. And once again, David Crane has let us all down.